Hello everyone and welcome to the Undercut, the GPblog podcast. My name is Nicolas Quarles, filling in for Joe Tyrrell today, and what a race we had in Monaco last weekend. We had Hamilton hanging on for dear life, Verstappen getting sent back 2 places, and a nightmare home Grand Prix for Charles Leclerc. To talk us through it, I'm joined by Adam Newton and debutant Bobby Vincent, who will also help me look ahead to the Canadian Grand Prix and answer some fan questions. And finally, me and Adam will once again face off in the hot take section. This is the 2019 season, episode 5.
Valtteri, it's James.
Come on. Get it, Joe. No, and that's going to ruin the undercut attempt. The undercut.
As I said, I'm joined by Adam Newton and Bobby Vincent. And Bobby, you're making your debut filling in for Joe, kind of like Jenson Button in 2017 at the Monaco Grand Prix. How do you feel about joining us here today?
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're a social media expert, so we'll come back to that later in the show. But let's first move on to the news. So guys, the news last week, the dominant news of the week, unfortunately, was the passing of Niki Lauda, absolute legend of the sport. And Adam, I'll come to you first. This is devastating.
Yeah, it's so sad. We know that Niki's been ill for a long time, and I hate to say it, but it doesn't come as a huge surprise. He'd not been very well, and obviously had a lot go on in his life.
Yeah,
with
fell ill last summer.
Last year with
Never
a
really
lung
recovered.
transplant, and it is sad news. But he'll always be remembered as an icon of Formula One and just a hero for anyone who, we look up to these F1 drivers as almost immortal. And he really embodied that spirit of what it's to be an F1 driver.
And Bobby, you monitor social media for us, and the outpouring of love for Niki Lauda was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously today, as I speak on Wednesday, it's his funeral in Vienna. Obviously, a lot of teams have paid tribute to him, like they did when we heard the news last week. Mercedes have put a nice video out titled "Remembering Niki Lauda." Just basically, so almost like a short documentary on his life, includes how dominant he once was as an F1 driver, and then the latter years where he's obviously been a non-executive chairman at Mercedes. There's pictures of his funeral, some big names in F1 there: Lewis Hamilton, Toto Wolff, Alain Prost, Christian Horner, Helmut Marko. Obviously, a lot of these were very close to him.
Yeah, and literally everyone just saying some nice words. Really.
Yeah, he seemed like a genuinely lovely guy. Everyone can't speak highly enough about him.
Yeah,
a lot of people saying that he might be the most influential guy ever in Formula One.
The way he came, it's not only F1. I think it's the best comeback story in sports maybe ever. I mean, obviously, already a world champion in 1975 for Ferrari, had that horrible crash in 1976 at the Nürburgring, which was none of his own doing. I think his suspension broke or something like that.
So.
He just ran into a wall, sat in a car that was on fire for a minute.
800 degrees
before he got dragged out, basically. And 6 weeks later, he's in the car again. And people always, go on about him finishing 4th, and obviously his balaclava was completely covered in blood after the race because all his wounds had opened again. But what I personally find most fascinating is the mental strength of that more than the physical strength, because to jump back in the car that practically killed you 6 weeks after and push it to the absolute limit again at a circuit as Monza and finishing 4th, that is something that the balls on him, really, like, I don't think anyone else would have done that.
I don't think it ever went through his mind that he would come back later.
Yeah,
he was always thinking, I'm going to come back as soon as I physically can. And he probably shouldn't have come back at that Italian Grand Prix, but he did, and he went on to win 2 more championships, and it just shows what desire and heart he had, and he carried that all the way through to the sad news last week.
I can't remember when it was, but recently he admitted that at the time he was very, cold about it. I'm going to return, I'm going to drive as soon as I can, but he admitted recently how that was absolutely terrified to come back, but he just didn't want to show it. And the courage to do something like that is truly special, I think. And he almost won the championship that same year if he hadn't parked his car at Suzuka because of the
Fuji.
pouring rain. Oh, Fuji, yeah. Sorry, I mixed my Japanese Grand Prix up. And I thought Will Buxton, obviously presenter for F1, put it really nicely when he said that he defined that crash rather than that crash defining him.
He owns that whole episode now.
And obviously he's known as such a tell you how it is guy, such a stand-up guy, and it just commands respect from everybody up to a great as Lewis Hamilton, who just can't stop speaking about how great of a guy he was. So I think he'll be truly missed. So guys, let's move on to the Monaco Grand Prix now, to a bit more uplifting, I guess. It was a very good race. It's something we rarely say about Monaco, but it was actually a very good race, wasn't it?
It was a good Monaco Grand Prix. We don't normally see them with such action like that.
Not a lot of overtaking, but just a lot of tension, a lot of drama, wasn't there, Bobby?
Yeah, I thought it was one of probably the best race of the season so far. Hamilton and Verstappen, the whole duel, almost like the whole race basically.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating.
Shades of Senna and Mansell back in the day.
Yeah.
Hamilton, obviously, his car was so slow, and everyone knew that Verstappen was eventually going to try and make that move.
He's eventually going to send it.
When is he going to send it? I was watching thinking he's got to make a move soon.
It was weird because like every lap that went past, they'd always do that shot. They'd always do the same sort of high shot when he's going around that corner, and he looked like he was getting closer every lap. And
round the hairpin, the lowest hairpin,
and he looked like he was getting closer every lap. But then it sort of, I think it was your eyes deceiving you almost. It was sort of it started to keep the same distance.
I think Verstappen said after the race that the traction of the Mercedes on the tunnel straight just didn't give him that gap. It just pulled away that little bit, so he couldn't really send it down the inside.
He just got away as he went into the tunnel, and he couldn't quite make it. We saw him try on the second last lap, but it just was too desperate in the end.
What a drive from Hamilton! I mean, his defense was just amazing. I know it's a hard track to overtake on anyway, but he gave Verstappen virtually nothing. Even when Verstappen,
did you see the state of those tires when they stopped?
They were ruined.
And
absolutely
the team radios as well were really funny. They're really funny, the team radios.
Cooked tires. Official sponsors of the Europa League.
Go on, Bobby.
Anyway, and I forgot what I was going to say now. The team radios are really funny because obviously.
First he was moaning a little bit, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was. I mean, I don't think I listened to the unheard radios after the race, and we didn't hear anywhere near the amount of moaning that Hamilton was doing. And it was funny when
James
took over as sort of he was like, Lewis, this is James, and
we know you can do it.
Yeah.
That was a great moment.
Yeah, he was just like, okay, James is saying it.
Yeah.
It was just like they got the boss in to tell him to shut up and do the job.
Basically.
And he did it so well.
I mean, he moans, but if you basically if Bono, this race engineer, would just muted him and just let him drive, I mean, the guy is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I think I said it on Twitter. I think he might be the best driver of all time.
Could
Sneaky.
Well be.
But let's look a little bit further down the grid. We had Ferrari. We had Vettel eventually finishing second. Yeah, because of the penalty for Verstappen.
Yeah.
And obviously that touch between Verstappen and Bottas kind of defined the race. What was your take of it?
Well, it was weird. It obviously was an unsafe release from Red Bull, and the right decision to punish Verstappen could have maybe been harsher, seeing as it gave Bottas a puncture. But I think that the event, Bottas would have finished second, or won the race, given Hamilton's tyres conditions, if that hadn't happened. And it's such a tight pit lane at Monaco, you can't really blame the Red Bull team, for not seeing Bottas, but they probably should have thought, oh, hang on, Valtteri might be coming out at a similar time, and been a bit safer, but it made it more exciting for us. So, yeah.
Well, what I find interesting was if Bottas had stayed in second, would he have, if with Lewis's tyres, do you reckon he would have...
Team orders.
Yeah. I would like to see that if he would have overtaken him, because obviously he'd want to, but I think they would have...
Maybe like a little Rosberg-esque collision.
But so early in the season when Bottas has been doing so well, I'm not sure they would have done.
And I think it's more of a risk for them if they did that, because obviously you get Verstappen catching up, Vettel catching up, and then.
Well, the 2016, I think, wasn't it Spain where Rosberg and Hamilton collided? That's the fifth race of the season. So, who knows? But Ferrari, speaking of Ferrari, I just mentioned them there a little bit, and Leclerc, absolute nightmare of a home Grand. I don't think you can physically have a worse home Grand Prix than the one he had, couldn't it?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Starting on Saturday, really.
Yeah, the call from Ferrari on Saturday was just. I think it's just a risk they don't need to take. It's especially in their situation at the moment. To leave him in the pits in Q1 when.
They just forgot about it.
Yeah, the time wasn't good enough. And
he wasn't even that high. He was like 10th when they decided to just keep him in.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Leclerc's time was 7/10 slower than the number one time of Seb Vettel in Q1. So isn't there like a little bit of... Could you excuse Ferrari there? Was there?
No.
No?
No, because every F1 team does their calculations and they have a cut-off time. And they're normally pretty accurate on those. And he just obviously wasn't close enough. They should have... If Vettel can go 7/10 quicker, why can't Leclerc go 7/10 quicker?
Yeah, he definitely has the capability of doing so.
Yeah.
He was so frustrated on Saturday. And obviously Sunday was a bit of a lost cause for him. He had some really nice overtakes. The one on
nice
Norris.
move into Raskas. Lovely move.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one, not the second one.
that one on Grosjean.
The one on Grosjean.
The one on Grosjean.
Inch perfect.
It was
the one on Hulkenberg, not so much.
Because it was like, I think that was a lap before, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
so he just done basically the identical move apart from his...
I think he overtook one person at the very start, then he had Norris at the lowest hairpin.
Yeah.
Very nice move.
Nice move again.
I think Norris could have maybe shut the door a little bit there, but he basically just
thought it's a Ferrari.
Just let it pass.
Well, Grosjean didn't think that because Grosjean was fuming, wasn't he? You could tell that he did not want him to get past.
Grosjean's always fuming. What are we talking about?
And then he clipped the barriers, and that was pretty much it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then he had that puncture and he just drove back to the pits way too aggressively.
Yeah, that's, I think, the lack of experience.
And it just killed his floor, and that was race. He was never going to get anywhere near anyone after that. I think
Martin Brundle was saying during his lap, in-lap, he was saying you got to go walking pace almost when you have a puncture, and he was just completely ruined his floor. And it's another really disappointing weekend for Ferrari all in all, really. Yeah, I think
you can't... apart from the driving aggressively when he knows he's got a puncture, but apart from that, I don't think you can blame Leclerc too much. I think Saturday's
eager.
Saturday's on Ferrari.
Yeah.
Sunday,
he knows he has to just go for it.
Yeah, so that's what happens all the time if you're down in 15th or whatever. And especially with the confidence you'd have got from the lap before doing the exact move on Grosjean, it was so it was so tight as well, as in like. It was a millimetre. He clipped it.
When you
look
at that slow-mo replay, you can really see how tight that was.
So I don't think you can blame him there, but then, he was stupid when he knows he's got a puncture.
But we've been talking about it for so long. When are these Ferrari mistakes going to end? The gap to Mercedes is 118 points.
Yeah.
That's a huge gap at the end of the season, and we're only at Monaco.
That's like they'll need like 3 consecutive double DNFs and double.
It's not happening. It's not Mercedes. We might just. I'm going to say it now.
Please jinx it.
Hot take.
If I was a bookies, I'd pay out on Mercedes winning the Constructors' Championship.
You're not a bookie, so are you?
I'm not, but if I was, that's what I'd do.
Working our way back from the front to the back of the grid, we had Gasly in P5 getting that fastest lap at the end there, won the fresh set of tires, and in P6. A very convincing performance from Carlos Sainz in the McLaren, Adam.
Fantastic performance from Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. A very good start. You've both seen his overtake on Kvyat round the outside.
Yeah. That, for me, is probably the move of the season.
Yeah. You don't often see that happen, and it was just perfect off the line.
Absolutely perfect move.
He's really come into his own recently. Didn't score in the first 3 races, had a very unlucky start, like we've mentioned in previous episodes. But in the last 3 races, Azerbaijan, Spain, Monaco, he's come 7th, 8th and 6th. That's consistency and good point scoring. It's not like he's come in 9th and 10th each week.
I mean, he's leading the midfield in the driver standings. McLaren are leading the midfield in the constructor standings. But Lando Norris...
guy.
Hamilton 2.0 in as someone in his room said.
I seem to have jinxed him, haven't I?
P11.
Yeah. I mean,
not a bad drive, but...
No. You still,
if
the McLaren is the 4th best car, you'd expect him to be in the points. But it's his first visit to Monaco in an F1 car. It's a tough track. I think we can like give him a little bit of leeway here.
I think I think Norris sacrificed his performance a lot for Sainz as well, from what I was reading. During the race, they were obviously only showing Hamilton and Verstappen mainly, so you didn't really watch it. But Norris was holding all the cars behind him, like Ricciardo and Magnussen, and that allowed Sainz to move so far ahead. So, yeah, I agree, as in not the best result, but maybe more of a team.
Norris has shown to be a very good team player as well in Azerbaijan. I think they did a little switch around in Azerbaijan, and eventually Sainz finished one position ahead of Norris. So that is maturity that is rarely displayed from a teenager.
I think his Twitter game as well is really strong, so we got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Everyone loves him.
Yeah, he's really strong.
Can we stop with the Hamilton 2.0 thing? I said it once. It was a joke. I don't mean it.
No, I think we're never going to live that down.
If he had done a bit, if he had, say, got some higher finishes, I reckon you said you meant it. Do you know what I mean?
I think I said it.
It was just the adrenaline coursing through.
I think I might have said it after he came P6 in Bahrain. Yeah, that's what it was. So excited.
It was Sainz missed FP1 as well, didn't he? Yeah, so it was an engine issue, wasn't it?
I don't know, actually. I'm
not 100% sure. I think it was, but I was reading up about it as well. Like, apparently, if you miss in a practice session in Monaco's probably the one track you want as much track time as possible. So for him to go on and finish 6th, I think is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying in Q3, unlike Norris, finishing with points, unlike Norris, it's quite a performance.
4 years F1 experience, unlike Norris.
Let's move on to our winners, or your winners and losers of the weekend. Adam, I'll start with you. You picked out a winner for us.
Yeah, a bit of an interesting one this week. Not a team or a driver, but an engine supplier, and that's Honda. All 4 cars in the points this week. Obviously, you had Verstappen bumped down to 4th, Gasly in 5th, Kvyat 7th, and Alex Albon, another impressive performance from him in 8th. That's a really, really solid performance from Honda. And I think I know Monaco isn't the most power-based track.
Yeah.
We've been saying that before, but it is a positive showing from them. And I think it can give Red Bull and Toro Rosso hope that Honda are coming on with this engine. And maybe at the tighter tracks, they'll have more chances to get top-class results. Verstappen looked quick this weekend. He has done every weekend, but even more so here. And if the track was a little bit wider, a couple of inches wider, he'd have won that race, because he would have got away from Lewis Hamilton for sure.
And it's very promising signs, and I think this ties in very nicely to your winner, Bobby, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've gone for Danny Kvyat. Came 7th this week. Yeah, 7th this weekend. I think he came 9th for in Spain as well. So he's 2 in a row for him. I think it was a really good drive. It almost went a bit under the radar. And what I've noticed as well, he's perhaps showed a lot more maturity than his previous spell in F1.
Yeah.
He was overtaken by Gasly early in the race, and he kept very calm and managed to drive a really clean race after that. And I think it's his 3rd top 10 of the season. I think he's drove really well so far. We
haven't seen like a classic Kvyat just dive bomb punt.
Maybe he's grown out of it.
Do you know something about Kvyat's Toro Rosso career?
Go on.
This is the first time he'd finished higher than P9.
Oh yeah, he mentioned that in his interview, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's his highest ever finish for Toro Rosso.
I thought that was pretty crazy. Random stat, but quite interesting. First finish higher than P9.
His 3rd stint at the team.
Yeah, don't often see that, do we?
And Adam, let's move on to your second winner now, remaining with the positivity. What's your second winner of the weekend?
So my second winner is someone we don't mention a lot, simply because his car is nowhere, as we all know. It's George Russell in the Williams. Came in P15, which you might be surprised or not surprised to hear if you followed the race closely, ahead of the likes of Lance Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen,
Charles Leclerc,
yeah, I mean, you can say that, but Robert Kubica, his teammate, down in 18th. Normally they've been the bottom 2, but Russell getting perhaps further away from Kubica. He's out-qualified him at every event so far, I believe.
I think once
Kubica was 19th.
No, I've been mixing up Alpha with, never mind.
And he's really got a hold of this car now, no matter how bad it is. And it's hard to say how impressive he's been, because he's nowhere near anyone else, but he's held Kubica behind him the whole season, and that is consistent. And they swapped chassis because there were rumours that Kubica's wasn't as good or whatever, and he's held it still. I think George Russell is a very, very talented driver, He won F2 last year ahead of my man Lando Norris. And it's tough to give him too much praise, but it's tough to give him too much stick. He's just sort of nobody in there at the moment. And I think it was a really mature and positive drive from him.
Did you see Kubica's onboard radio during the race asking Williams why is Russell pitting first? Because Kubica was ahead of Russell, and Russell was still went in first for his pit stop and eventually finished ahead of Kubica.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That shoots down your
It
argument.
does shoot down my argument a bit, but he still came home P15, a long way ahead of Kubica, and he has been ahead of him all season.
Well, let's move on, Bobby. You have a couple of losers.
Yeah,
Massive losers.
Yeah, my first one is Daniel Ricciardo. This might be a bit harsh because I think it's more of Renault's fault than his own. But ultimately ended up as a loser. So when the safety car came out for Leclerc's tyre, Renault called him in for a pit stop, and it's easy to say in hindsight because obviously a lot of teams did that, but turned out to be a sort of disaster for Ricciardo, who started in P6. He overtook Magnussen straight away.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so went up to P5 and then pitted, came out of the race and came out again, and he was stuck behind Norris, which I mentioned earlier, for a while, and it sort of just messed up his race. He ended up finishing P9, and don't forget that he's been so good on Monaco in the past. Obviously, a lot quicker car, but I'm starting to think if Ricciardo might be regretting his decision to move to Renault, because we all said it at the time. It seemed a bit like a step down, and it's turned out to be a massive step down with how bad Renault have been this season. He must be so frustrated.
Well, let's keep this negative energy flowing, Adam. Who's your loser?
My big loser of the weekend. This is a big loser because they were fantastic up until a few weeks ago. It's Alfa Romeo. Yeah, like I mentioned, Giovinazzi classified 19th.
Absolute horror show.
From Giovinazzi. Raikkonen, not Ricciardo. Raikkonen classified 17th. It's 2 races without points for Kimi. How often do we see that? I know he's been in Ferrari and Lotus and whatever recently, but he is such a good driver, and you don't go from regular point scoring to rubbish overnight. Something's happened with that Alfa Romeo. Maybe the tracks haven't suited them, or they've brought in an upgrade that's been a downgrade or whatever, but they were nowhere again. They were back to 2017 Sauber, like where they came from.
It's weird that they're 9th in the standings now, and they were leading the midfield after a couple of races, and Raikkonen was just, as you said, consistently in the points, and they're absolutely nowhere now.
Yeah, I think Raikkonen got, was it 4-point finishes in a row? I think.
Yeah, 4 in a row.
Yeah, so the last 2 is the only time he's been out.
Giovinazzi not scoring any points so far
that doesn't help them in the constructors. I mean, Raikkonen's got all 13 of their points. And
Giovinazzi did a nice little Mick Schumacher impression there at Raskas.
yeah.
Sending one. No space.
Then again, that midfield, apart from McLaren, who have slightly pulled away, is still extremely tight. You've got Racing Point, Haas, Toro Rosso, Renault, and Alfa all within 4 points of each other.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Whoever gets like P7 next time out in Canada are going to jump up to 5th.
Yeah, maybe that Ferrari engine of
maybe
Alfa will shine there. Bobby?
Kevin Magnussen's my other loser, and I really hope he's not listening because I'm quite scared of him. I said earlier, mentioning Ricciardo, he started in 5th. He was overtaken straight away, which isn't the end of the world, but after that, it's very similar to Ricciardo. He strategy call, it didn't work out, and then he just spent the majority of his race in P14 behind Norris. He ended up finishing in P14. He gained 2 places right at the end, but was then penalised for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. But it was such a strong qualifying from Haas again, and yet again it's the race pace has been poor.
Yeah.
But on the other side, Roman Grosjean in the same car went from P12 to P10.
He did, yeah. I think that shows how bad Magnussen was on Sunday even more. So,
but if we remember last season, Haas I think they finished in the last 2 places at Monaco. Haas have historically struggled massively at Monaco, so maybe that's like being a little positive. I guess
it's not too bad of a result when you look at it like that, but I think Magnussen must have been favourite to get best of the rest there.
Yeah.
But it was a disaster of a Sunday for him.
You think Gunther Steiner was letting out some curse words again?
I should think so.
His interview was very funny.
Let's not forget the Haas stronghold of Austria is coming up. 4th and 5th there last year, I remember.
Yeah. In Austria.
So there might be some points coming for them soon.
Yeah, they need to start going because, well, they just haven't started anywhere like they finished last season.
All right, guys, that's enough Monaco talk, I think, for now. So let's move on now to the Canada Grand Prix. So, Adam, in a week and a half's time, more or less, we're traveling to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I usually am the one doing
Nice pronunciation.
I'm usually the one doing the track lowdown, I guess. But talk us through this historic venue.
So the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada, is for me one of the best tracks on the calendar that we've got. It's technical, tricky, fast in some places, slow in other places. Circuit, some really good overtaking spots. You think back to the hairpin where Robert Kubica had his huge crash that we were watching just earlier.
Yeah.
You've seen a few people send it down there. The first turn always has drama, and we often see very, very good races in Canada.
And the famous Wall of Champions, of
Wall
course.
of Champions. Who's going to hit it this year? Who's your hot take to hit it?
Obviously, Canada is a bit of one of the favorite tracks of one of the drivers on the grid, Bobby. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, 6-time winner in Canada. He's won behind the legend that is Michael Schumacher, who won 7 times there. It was last year he could have made it 4 in a row, but Sebastian Vettel perhaps upset the Brit there.
Let's look back at last year's Canada Grand Prix now, where Sebastian Vettel took back the championship lead after converting his pole position into a race win, something that is really unimaginable in the 2019 in the 2019 year, I guess. Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen completed the podium, Hamilton finishing 5th after qualifying 4th on a venue, as Bobby said, that he usually loves. And the race started with a massive crash between Brendan Hartley and Lance Stroll, with Stroll pushing Hartley into the barrier, really, and the two going for a tumble and crashing into the barriers. A classic race that got waved off early by Supermodel Winnie Harlow. I don't know if you guys remember that. Really weird. I was personally quite pissed off because Verstappen had a good run on Bottas, and with one more lap, I'm convinced he would have taken him for second place. But leaving my grievances to the side, guys, what can we expect from the 2019 Canada Grand Prix? Vettel pole position and win again?
Oh, I wish. Well, that would shake it up, wouldn't it? Well, he'd be a bit closer than he is now. But it's a Hamilton stronghold. He's won 6 times there, like Bobby mentioned a minute ago. And it's going to happen again for me. I can't see anything but
no way.
Hamilton's come into his own in the last couple of races. He's won them both. And I think that, unfortunately, for the championship perspective, I think he's going to start running away with it now and pulling away from Bottas.
Bobby, can you give anyone else a bit of hope heading into Montreal?
I think Bottas has, obviously it'll still be Mercedes, but I think I'm fancying Bottas for this one. Hamilton's won the last 2 races, right? And I think Bottas needs to react, and if not, then it might be a string of Lewis Hamilton dominance this season. I think he needs to get that winning again.
Yeah, the gap 17 points now. Bottas needs a win.
Could see a response from him as well. I imagine he'd be quite frustrated after a frustrating Monaco Grand Prix. But yeah, you can't look past Mercedes, and I'm not ruling Lewis Hamilton out by any stretch. So,
well, I think it's quite fair to say Ferrari need a win as well.
Oh, we've been saying that for the last since Australia,
since we started. Yeah,
6 races. But Canada, quite a power-heavy circuit. That still superior Ferrari engine.
Yeah.
Can you talk me into a Ferrari win?
I'll do my best to give Ferrari a chance, shall I?
As a Dutch person, can you talk me into a Max Verstappen win?
I don't think I can talk you into a Max Verstappen win on a power-based track.
Can you talk me into a George Russell win?
It's quite easy.
I'm not a wizard, Bobby. Ferrari's engine is more powerful than Mercedes' engine. We've known that all season. And yes, Canada is a power-hungry track. You've got the very long back straight before the Wall of Champions chicane, and a few other good overtaking areas that they could take advantage of. But if they're going to do it, they need to pull out in qualifying. I've been thinking this for a long time. Mercedes' dominance, apart from Leclerc in Bahrain when he took pole, Mercedes' dominance in qualifying is giving them such an advantage, and they're able to just race away at the start. But if Ferrari this is hypothetical.
If
Ferrari can lock
Big
out
if.
that front grid, Vettel, Leclerc, whatever
Wow.
order, or just one of them get pole,
all right.
and they get ahead at the first corner, stay ahead. Mercedes won't be able to overtake them because their superior power unit will catapult them away on the straights, and the Mercs won't be able to catch them.
Vettel will hit a barrier though, won't he?
Yeah, or just spin under no pressure like he has done so
A
many
mental
times.
barrier or like an actual barrier?
Both.
Okay.
No, an actual barrier.
And no mention, sadly, for Max Verstappen.
Well, he'll probably be there because he is a fantastic driver, Nick. Does that please you?
Another P4 in the
And
works.
yeah, it'll be something like that. He'll get third
Will
or
it?
fourth, and we'll go, oh, Verstappen was good this week.
I think he'll be on the podium. I think it'll be
Have you
Mercedes 1,
realised
2.
that Verstappen's finished 4th in 4 of the 6 Grand Prix?
It's
Can my
superb
guy?
consistency.
I mean, can my guy please get
Catch a
at
break.
least a 2nd place, please?
I think he'll get on the podium this time. I think it'll be Mercedes front row, and then
Wow, that's a very hot take.
Verstappen. I mean, it's not.
You've gone risky with that, mate.
I might change it for my GPblog predicts. I'm not sure. I need to think
Ooh.
about it. But
Hashtag GPblog.
I'm just saying this is not my final decision. Ferrari. I don't know what to expect from them. Like we've been saying it for.
Basically, a lot of things need to go right for Ferrari to get anything out of this weekend.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
been here every week thinking of scenarios and situations that Ferrari can take advantage of, and they've done none of it. So they might turn up and go, oh, we have this new engine upgrade, and it actually reduces them by 100 horsepower.
Or German. What was that, Bobby?
The French. Is that sounded French?
Canadian?
Well, I tried. Yeah, they'll probably come with an upgrade that won't work and come third and fourth again.
Moving down to midfield now, I guess we've discussed no mention of Pierre Gasly, by the way.
Poor old Pierre.
What? Obviously, you just said how close the midfield is with the 5 teams being separate. by
5
just
teams by 4 points.
4 points, so it's incredibly close. Who is gonna do it this time? This is basically just me asking you to take a gamble. Who are you
Yeah.
gambling on this time?
I'm going to go safe and with my heart and say the guys that are out in the lead right now, McLaren will
Surprise.
likely. I mean, they've got
The look of
30,
shock on Bobby's
30
face right
points
now.
compared to 17 for Racing Point. It is a big difference, and
Yeah.
I can see them doing it again, but we can't rule out the Ferrari engines. Alpha need to bounce back. Kevin Magnussen at Haas needs to bounce back. So if I'm really going out there and saying in my exact top 10, you'd obviously have the top 6 drivers, and I reckon Magnussen, Raikkonen and the 2 McLarens will be in the top 10.
Yeah,
in
because
midfield.
see him finishing.
Keys. I'm physically handling. Are going to debate that topic, Bobby. Yeah.
Go.
Hamilton, no weaknesses. Denying that. 5 championships to beat Sebastian Vettel, Michael Schumacher. He's beat rookie. Doesn't mean he's not a good driver.
I'm gonna have to add a bit.
Just
almost a minute, Nick. Say why Lewis Hamilton is not the great. Go.
Okay. Drivers of in completely one. It's almost a different sport back. Hamilton is a great driver.
Stop it.
Oh, I couldn't. That's 5 seconds.
I got 5 seconds.
just saying that no one.
I think it's so hard.
That's like when people and they this or something.
Well, compare between.
I think you could better in that. Schumacher better, but saying that you can't compare, in my opinion, you
Different sport.
So,
from as
man,
Just twin. Senna
stop being.
was in 1 minute and 1:10. A different sport.
So it's harder, you
And gear ratio, like he's playing
before. Next week,
Lauda almost died racing Senna.
so you're saying Hamilton's got to die?
It's dangerous back then. Tougher, but you still can't compare because the greatest of this era doesn't the greatest of all.
Some questions from you guys from Twitter. We on our Twitter page, Bobby _com. Am I right in saying that, Bobby?
You are.
Yeah, I am. So let's run through these questions really quickly. First of all, we have the lost son. Is he? No one knows.
Cheap of him to send a.
He says, "Is Sergio Perez the Monaco chicane changed, or is it part of the circuit?" Obviously, Sergio Perez got sort of nudged by Kevin Magnussen, who illegally through. He's talking about the chicane.
Yep.
What do we think, Adam?
a difficult thing to say. I think what they could do is make it less attractive to skip the chicane. Or curbs in there to make them
Sausage
inside
curbs.
the chicane. Sausage curbs, yeah. But saying that, could they just go straight on there and make it to back, or is that dangerous?
Oh, that might be a bit dangerous.
That might be a bit dangerous. The Monaco track has much scope. It's so tight.
I mean, the old track, the chicane there.
It wasn't a chicane, was it?
Lethal.
Yeah. A quick.
Yeah, and if you hit inside, you're dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, the old track, so,
Yeah.
you know, why...
And cars in the harbour.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you change some of that? Second question. I'll go to you now, Bobby. Hayden Carey, thank you for your question, Hayden, says, reports saying Seb Vettel could be retiring. Who would be replacement? Raikkonen back or Bobby? First of all, let me ask you this. Do you actually think Vettel's going to retire?
No, not at the end of this season. Obviously, I think he will retire eventually.
Yeah, there's a point in this question.
Do you say Ricardo